It's unbelievable, really. I don't know how I've managed to survive this long, really. I think the good Lord was to walk with me right the way through.
For every soldier, war is a journey into the unknown. But for Private Arthur Dodd, his epic journey through World War II would take him to the extremes of human experience and leave him with memories he found impossible to share, until now. In 1942, like thousands of other British soldiers, Arthur Dodd was captured by the Germans in North Africa. He proved to be a difficult prisoner and defied his captors at every opportunity. He was marked down as a troublemaker and was sent to Germany in early 1943.
We landed at this, it wasn't a station, it was like a siding with a wooden platform on. And when we all got out, we could see all these bundles of clothes and suitcases and portmanteaus burst open with clothes all over the place, and we hadn't a clue what it was all about. And they unloaded us, and we marched about 5 kilometres or something like that to this prisoner of war camp.
Arthur Dodd and his fellow British soldiers had been transported to the Monowitz prisoner of war camp, part of the Auschwitz complex.
When we were there, the Germans got us together for a meal, and they'd cook the meal, and we got potatoes, meat, I can always remember spotted dick pudding with custard, and we thought we got it made. We thought we'd got it really made, and we were there possibly maybe 2 weeks just living in luxury. Hot and cool water, showers and everything. It was great. And in the meantime, more POWs had come in till we had around about 250 POWs in the camp. And then they came and they said, right, this is it, you're going to work. I was in front of the column, and as we were marching to work, we thought we were going farming, and we were singing the army songs, I've got sixpence, jolly jolly sixpence to send on to me wife, and all this. We were in a happy mood, and we came to this scene. There was an SS man there, and he got this Jewess with a top half down to her waist, and he was whipping her unmercifully with this whip. One of the lads at the back of me touched me on my shoulder. Let's get him. And 5 or 6 of us run out after this SS man, and as we were approaching him, he got his revolver out, and the Wehrmacht run round us, got his rifle and pushed us back, and he said in pidgin England, he'll kill you, get back, Sharik, Sharik, get back, he'll kill you. So he pushed us back, and we didn't at the time know what was going on. We didn't know she was Jewish at the time. When we got back to camp that night, when we marched back to camp, there wasn't a word spoken by any of us. And when we got back to camp, all you could hear was, you know, soldiers crying and breaking the hearts of what they'd witnessed. And I was among them. I cried all night that night.
Leon Greenman, a British national, was rounded up in Holland. Without a passport to prove his status, the Nazis shipped him to Auschwitz. The sight of other British faces at the prisoner of war camp helped keep up his morale.
Their camp was 3 kilometers from our camp. And when we marched home on one part of the road, on the other side, the other road, were the British prisoners of war marching to their camp. And I used to call out, "Good night, Joe, Charlie." And then one or two recognized me and said, "Good night, Leon." And when I heard that, it done me good. English done me good.
We didn't know what was going on at the far end of the factory, not for a few weeks actually. We didn't know this was going on. We were told rumours, you know, of what was going on, but I mean it was too horrific to think it was true, you know.
The British POWs were to learn more about the conditions of the Jews as they worked alongside them as slave labour in the factories.
We saw the Jews, there was quite a number of Jews working in the building, inside of the building, and we didn't know who they were. We knew they were Jews anyway. We found out very quickly that they were Jews. They had the Star of David with Jude written across, and in charge of each gang of Jews was a capo, which was also a Jew. He got better rations for making them work.
In the camps, you could never be sure who you could trust. For Leon, the British POWs represented a vital but dangerous lifeline.
Once or twice I was inside the workshops, and I probably was helping to put a piece of iron or part of a machine somewhere, and then over there stood a prisoner of war, and if the carper wasn't looking, I probably got onto him and say, any cigarettes, say something like that.
It was very difficult working in that factory because you couldn't trust anybody. You know, you had to be very, very wary what you did. And even when we were feeding the Jews little tidbits, you had to hide them in little cubby holes in the building, inside the building.
He handed me a thin bar of chocolate, Cadbury's chocolate. And it wasn't allowed, they wasn't allowed to talk or to take anything. And I broke it in pieces, and I wanted to give my mates a piece, and they refused. Later on they said, you're not allowed to take it. You're not allowed. That's why we don't want it. So I had it myself.
We had a bond. It was a good bond between the POWs there. What we did, we tried to help the young ones. It was eye contact, really, to tell them where you'd hidden it and where you'd put this stuff. As I say, we had a good bond, the POWs. We helped them best way we could.
If, by luck, some of us ordinary prisoners, Jewish prisoners, were allowed to go in there and to help out with something, and there was an Englishman there, British, talked, and then they left a piece of bread for the next day or something like that.
We did all as we could to help the Jews, yes. It was very difficult, but we did what we could.
Despite the risks, Arthur used his rations to barter for anything that might help him escape.
I did a little bit of smuggling there. There was a Polish patriarch there that approached me and said that he was stripping a wireless down at home, and would the parts be any use? And I said, certainly they will, yes. And I gave him cigarettes and a bar of chocolate, and he brought them in 2 parts. And anyway, he brought them to the factory, and when we were marching back to the camp that evening, when we got to the camp entrance, lo and behold, the Gestapo was there and the SS doing a search. And I knew the moment I saw them that I'd been set up. I knew that it was me that they were after, because it was the chappie that was in charge of them was the same guy that was whipping the Jewish girl that had eyeballed when we first came there.
The guards took Arthur to the main Jewish camp at Auschwitz.
When I walked in, there was an SS man sitting behind the desk, and he said, Arthur Dodd, he said, who gave you those wireless parts? And my answer was, you know who gave me those wireless parts. He asked me 3 times, and on the 3rd time, before I could open my mouth, on the 3rd time, one of these at the back hit me across the head with his, well, I don't know what it was, but it blinking hurt, and he knocked me clean off the chair, and then they started putting the boot in, and gradually I just went into unconsciousness.
Leon, too, had a narrow escape from death. He was spotted talking to a British POW.
They caught me talking to Sergeant Aldridge. I saw a prisoner of war, and I thought no one was watching me, so I walked up to him. And I said, keep walking, prisoner. I'm Leon Green, and I'm from London. I'm here with wife and child. If you tell your upper people, the Red Cross, or your officers, I want to get out.
If we were caught helping them, if, for instance, they were wheeling a wheelbarrow that was, and you'd see them tottering with it, if you went to help, that was not on. They'd just come and shoot you, and shoot him as well.
And all of a sudden, behind me, a loud bullying, and I looked up, a 6-foot fella, an SS in civilian clothes. What are you doing here, talking to a prisoner of war? Where's your commando? And he took me back to my commando, you see. And I said to Aldrich, I said, you might never see me again, but get that message through to England.
Leon survived that encounter by bribing his workgroup boss with a cigarette. Arthur Dodd finally made contact with the Polish resistance. They agreed to help him escape if he took part in a sabotage mission to destroy the camp's generator.
And this Pole came, made myself known, and he said, right, follow me. And we went under the wire of the factory. It was frightening, believe me, you could hear dogs barking, and went dark, it was dark, and we came to a crossroads, and there was an old vehicle standing there with the engine running, and they told me to get in the back, and when I got in the back, there was 4 more of our lads in there. There was Halifax, Ginger, we call him Ginger, he was a guardsman, and these 2 Geordies and myself. I could see that what it was, we were going to blow something up. The Poles went into this, back of this building, went in this building, did the dirty work and that, and we heard this explosion. It was like a muffled explosion, and they come out again. We gathered all the gear together, back up the road to the wagon, put it in the wagon, back into the copse. All of a sudden, these searchlights come on, right at us, and the machine gun opened up, and we all scattered, and we managed, the 2 Geordies and myself managed to get away. We were blinking lucky.
Without food, money, or proper clothing, the 3 survivors headed south. After 3 days, they had crossed the border into Czechoslovakia, but their troubles weren't over yet.
We went down the lane, opened the gate, and as we got through the gate, this policeman with a grey uniform got up off his gate. He was hiding at the back of the edge, and with his rifle, and he was like a Czechoslovakian policeman, and he took us to this schoolroom and locked us in this schoolroom.
Life was much better for them locked up in a village school. They all feared being sent back to Auschwitz, where they were sure execution awaited them. A week went by, and they were still in Czechoslovakia.
And we were there for, I think we were there for nearly 2 weeks. And then the Wehrmacht came with a vehicle and took us back to our camp. And the tummy was churning, and I thought, oh, well, this is it. We've had it this time, you know, we've shot a bolt. We got to the camp, and the lorry stopped outside the gates. The gates were open, and these Wehrmacht, they got us out, helped us out of the wagon, and just pointed to the gates, and we walked through the gates, and we went back to our huts. And when I walked in my hut, some of the lads in the hut said, hey Arthur, how have you gone home? I said, why, what's the matter? Was it a good job you had? And I thought, it's true, there's something going on here. And they thought we'd been taken to another work party to work. So I got nipped out of the hut, went to the 2 Geordies, said, keep your mouth shut, they think we've been out to a work party, there's something going on here. And we didn't know what was going on. It was Corporal Purdy that enlightened me on it. He said, Arthur, he said, what's happened here, I think, Feldwebel Messer, when we had the count every morning, he's counted you here, because if he'd have counted 5 men missing, he said, they'd have sent him up to the Eastern Front, and that's what they were doing then.
Fear of SS reprisals was so great that the camp guards had covered up Arthur's escape. For Jewish prisoners in the main camp, like Leon Greenman, the day-to-day routine was horrific.
We all thought, well, work hard and then the Nazis will let you go. That's the reverse. The work was so hard and difficult, where the commando I was dealt into was unloading trains with hundreds of weights of cement, sand, coal, rails, anything to do with building and to enlarge the camp.
They broke our spirits. The things that we witnessed and that which they put on show for us was to break our spirit. That was how that's how they worked. They wanted to break our spirit. And in a lot of cases they did.
The labour was there to diminish you. The utmost 3 or 4 months, that was the rule, that you could live in the camps. So many went, and so few stayed alive. (98,288). 98,288, that's in German. You never hear your name in the camps, never. You're not a name, you're a number, you're nothing. You're nothing, you're a number. Every 3 or 4 weeks you had selections. All the barracks were locked, everybody had their strip, and in every barrack was a table, and behind the table sat a capo and probably an SS doctor. And you had to walk past those 2 men. And they look at your bum, they look at your body, and if you were too skinny, you went to the left. 2 days later you went to the gas chamber. But if you were still fit and you could walk, then they thought, well, he can last for work. And then you went to the right, and it's happened to me. Those were the moments that everybody was afraid.
The smell was from it was there all the time. It was like burnt flesh and burnt meat, and it was there all the time. When we first got there, it got up your nose and in the back of your throat, but as time went on, we got used to it, but it was there all the time.
Arthur made friends with a young Polish woman who worked in the factory alongside him. It was a friendship forged in the face of impossible conditions.
She used to pass me these messages of how the war was going. She couldn't speak English, it was just more or less eye contact and that with her. But she was a real patriot, there's no doubt about that.
Her name was Maria. Like Arthur, she managed to survive until the day when the camp awoke to find the guards fleeing. The Nazis were in retreat all along the Eastern Front.
But this particular day, as I say, we went to work and there was no work for us to do because all the bosses had gone. Everybody, the factory was absolutely deserted. And we were just hanging about there, and Maria Koska turned up with this Ukraine girl. And she came to me, she got hold of my hand and pulled me along, and we walked back towards Birkenau, and she took me into this building, and we walked up the stairs on this first floor, and as we approached it, she put her hand to her lips, quiet. There was 2 or 3 fires going, and they were throwing wood on the fire, burning the fire. The SS were destroying all the evidence. They were burning papers, there was bonfires burning, and they were throwing these little babbies into the bonfires. And they were making Jews themselves throw the little babies into the bonfire. And that was the worst experience I've ever experienced. And we walked back to where we were working, in our working area. And through a Pole, not Stasia, another Pole, she spoke to him in Polish, and he said, Maria said, if you get out of this alive, will you tell the world of what's been going on here?
As the Nazis prepared to flee from the advancing Russians, they offered the POWs a choice: march west towards the British and Americans, or stay at the camp and take their chances with the Russians. The majority of POWs chose to march to their own lines.
We started out that same morning with what bits and pieces we had, which wasn't a lot, because as I say, most of the huts had been destroyed. The temperatures was 32 degrees below. There was about 2 to 3 foot of snow on the ground, and it was still snowing and very, very cold when we started out.
Leon too was on a march, a death march. For the Jews, there was no respite. If you fell behind, you were killed.
You had to walk, keep on walking, and it was snowing. And if you stopped, they shot you. If you fell to the ground, they shot you. If you tried to walk away the beautiful white fields of snow, I saw it. As took time, put his gun on there, bum, didn't come home.
During the first 2 weeks, we walked over dead Jews that had started out 2 weeks before us. And for 2 weeks we were walking over dead bodies.
On my right hand, there was a young Frenchman. Because I fell, my legs were getting tired, fell nearly to the ground several times. And he pulled me up every time and he said, "Come on, Leon, come on, Englishman, we're nearly there."
Leon Greenman and Arthur Dodd both made it back alive to a world unable to comprehend what they had been through. Once back in his hometown in the northwest of England, Arthur Dodd was invited to a public meeting to talk about his experiences in Auschwitz. To fulfill the promise he had made to Maria Koschka, he accepted.
The cinema was full of people, and I was first on anyway, and told them about the concentration camps, how the Jews were treated, and the gassing of and burning of the bodies, and nobody said a word. And then he introduced the chappie from Arnhem, and of course when he introduced them, everybody clapped and cheered, and I just sat there and listened to him. And when it was all over, I just walked down the steps off the stage, and nobody took no notice, and when the other chappie got up, they all went round him as if he was a hero. So nobody wanted to know. I think they thought I was telling a story like it was unbelievable. They never heard of it, you see. And nobody knew about it at the time, that there was concentration camps and gas chambers and crematoriums. Nobody knew at the time. It hadn't come out. So after that, I never, if anybody got talking about, you know, I never mentioned it again. Never mentioned it.